Hello, and welcome to my Shattering Concoction build guide. The gear requirements, gems, Ascendancy passives will be timestamped below. I've linked a Maxroll Planner in the description so you guys can easily see the passive tree, which I won't be going over in this video. I will be talking through every single gear pieces, showing the mandatory mods as well as my recommendations and some optional ones that you can fit in. I will also be talking about my gem setup, as well as my Ascendancy nodes. If you have any further questions, require more explanation, or if you feel like I've missed anything, please don't hesitate to comment down below and I will try to answer your question as soon as possible. Also feel free to subscribe and give this video a like if this video has helped you. Without further ado, let's get started. This build will be using Shattering Concoction and will be utilizing crit for massive amounts of damage. Using Cast on Freeze for Voltaic Mark with the help of Herald of Ice and Thunder for big and satisfying screen-wide explosions. We will have great defensive layers such as Freeze, Stun, High Evasion, Life and Energy Shield using Atziri's Disdain, and Spectral Ward alongside Grim Feast for more Energy Shield, and Wind Dancer for more evasion. The current setup boasts a high amount of Spirit for multiple auras at once, but this is not required. You'll only need 180 Spirit to be able to fit Cast on Freeze, Grim Feast, and Heralds, which are mandatory for the build. We'll talk about how to get Spirit later on in the gearing section. Before we start, I want to mention that this build will require the mod Mana per Enemy Killed, for a Cast on Freeze to work without running out of mana. This means that it's important to be able to fit this in either your gloves or rings. 30 to 35 mana per kill should be enough. We'll be using Widow Hail as our main bow and it's mandatory for the build. This bow significantly magnifies the mods of the Quiver equipped, and so getting the highest percentage will be important. We'll stack this percentage further by grabbing these nodes in the passive tree. Note that we are not using Quiver effect jewels, but feel free to do so if you have the budget for it. For the Quiver, it is mandatory to get +2 to projectile skills. This will get amplified greatly by your bow and passive skills mentioned earlier. Critical chance is also mandatory, as this will be where majority of your crit chance will be from. I recommend finding a Visceral Quiver for its crit chance implicit, or simply find any quiver that has crit chance as its suffix. Find the highest percentage that fits your budget. Another great mod to have is Dexterity. Having high dex on your quiver will mean that you won't need any of it in your tree, which allows you to put more intelligence for gem requirements. If you can't find a quiver with dex, that's totally fine. You will just have to use lower intelligence gems for the time being. For the rest of the mods, I recommend getting increased damage with bow skills, as right now this is currently working with concoctions and increases the damage by a huge amount. Projectile speed is also nice to have, but it's not needed. And if you can, find one with added cold damage to attacks. If not, then any high tier attack will do just fine. Attack speed is not mandatory, as we will be using Martial Tempo in one of our support gem slots. The helmet of choice for this setup is Atziri's Disdain. This helmet, alongside Spectral Ward, allows us to have a nice chunk of energy shield, which greatly increases our effective life pool. If you can, buy one with increased Spirit Corruption. Our body armor will want high evasion and energy shield, along with high life, spirit, and any resistances you may need. You can also opt in for high pure evasion body armor instead, as this will give better overall evasion thanks to bestial skin, and will still provide energy shield thanks to Spectral Ward. If you're able to, and if your budget can fit it, also add in Chaos Res. Our Amulet will need plus level to projectile skills. If it fits your budget, try and get one with +3 levels. But this is more of a luxury as we will already be dealing loads of damage, so instead try to just get a +2, and if you're really tight on the budget, +1 will do just fine for the time being. You'll want high life, spirit, and any resistances that you're still lacking. The rings are a great way to get more damage added onto our build, and so if you can, find one that has added cold to attacks, increased cold damage, or both. Make sure to use Toll's Catalyst to increase the cold damage even further. For the rest of the mods, you'll want life, and any resistances that you're still lacking. Like I mentioned earlier, if you can fit in mana per killed mod here, then you won't need it on your gloves. If you have the budget for it, include rarity in your rings. An alternative to one of your rings can be a Ventus Gamble with high rolls and spirit if you prefer. You'll lose some damage potential, but this will sort out any resistances and spirit requirements that you're lacking. Only do this if you have good rolls on your Ventus, otherwise I'd go against it. The gloves will want high life, evasion, and resistances. If your budget allows it, try to find gloves that have crit bonus or added cold to attack. And also, if you can fit mana per kill mod here, then you won't need it on your rings. And if you can afford them, also include rarity. For a budget friendly belt, get one with high life and resistances. And if you can afford better ones, look for additional charm slots and chaos resistance. My setup is currently using a headhunter, but this is not mandatory. And for boots, we want to have high movement speed, high life rolls, and evasion, and of course any other lacking resistances. Your charms of choice may vary, but I recommend using Thawing Charm for freeze immune. If you have extra charm slots, use Stone Charm for stun immune, and then Golden Charm for more rarity. I recommend getting a health flask with instant recovery for dire situations that requires panic healing. For your mana flask, it is important to get one with increased charges, or charges gained per second, depending on what fits you most. For Shattering Concoction, we'll be using Scattershot, Martial Tempo, Cold Mastery, Cold Infusion, and Ice Bite. If you are not level 90 and you don't have your 5th slot, you can take off Cold Infusion for now. For Cast on Freeze, we'll be putting Voltaic Mark, and we'll be supporting that with Innovate, Energy Retention, and Impetus. This is the reason why we need Mana on Kill mod on our gloves or rings. Without it, we won't be able to sustain our mark, and will be every single time it procs. For our defensive auras, we'll be running Wind Dancer and Grim Feast. Wind Dancer allows us to have more evasion per stage, so it is important to add quality onto this so that we gain one more maximum stage, which in turn will give us an additional 19% more evasion. This is then supported by Blind and Maim. For Grim Feast, make sure to add quality onto this as well, as this will make us stack our energy shield even quicker. For our double Herald setup, we'll be running Herald of Ice, supported by Lightning Infusion, Overcharge, Conduction, and Magnified Effect. If you don't have 4 slots on your Herald of Ice, consider taking off Magnified Effect for the time being. And for Herald of Thunder, it will be supported by Glaciation, Longshot, Lightning Mastery, and Frost Nexus. Again, if you only have 3 slots, you can remove Frost Nexus. For bosses, we'll be using Eye of Winter and Hypothermia. Eye of Winter inflicts critical weakness on hit, which causes hits against the affected enemies to have 0.5% to critical hit chance, and can stack up to 20 times, totaling for 10%. Using Unleash support, we're able to cast 2 more Eye of Winters, for a total of 3 projectiles. This will allow us to inflict critical weakness even quicker. For the rest, we'll be using Inspiration for less mana cost, Cold Exposure, and Persistent for more skill effect duration. For Hypothermia, we'll be using Heightened Curse and Cursed Ground. For the Ascendancy, we're taking Shattering Concoction, alongside Traveler's Wisdom, Running Assault, and Relentless Pursuit. Relentless Pursuit is a nice quality of life that allows you to be unaffected by any slows, which includes Hinder and Chill. We don't need to go into connected chemistry, because we already gain loads of flash charges while we're killing stuff, especially in breaches, and you deal a significant amount of damage to bosses, and you'll kill it before you run out of flash charges anyway. For duels, you can get any mod that will increase your damage, but I recommend going for increased cold damage and crit bonus. Also look out for useful mods such as increased maximum energy shield, chance to shock, freeze build up, and increased elemental damage. Since we are not using cannibalism in our build, due to it costing a lot of spirit to run, we will need to get life on kill mod on some of our jewels. 3% should be enough. If you feel like you're still lacking mana recovery, despite getting mana on kill mod, then consider finding jewels that have mana on kill mod as well.